Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch. Today's special guest is tall, dark, handsome, and always getting killed in horror films. He may know his way around cinematic blood, but today he will be spilling the blood as we chat with him about starring in 80s horror films like The Initiation, The Wraith, Waxwork, Sundown, The Vampire in Retreat, and when he wasn't getting sliced and diced, he also guest starred on several TV shows, various films in other genres, and even became a writer-director. Please welcome to the podcast, Christopher Bradley!
Hello. Thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Thank you.
So, we read that you were born in Pennsylvania but grew up in Albuquerque as one of 8 children. So what was it growing up in that part of the country and being part of such a large family?
So I was joking with somebody recently about why I became an actor. So my mother would call us we were a very religious Catholic family, and my mother would call us to prayer at night before we went to bed. So I remember when we were praying, it would be when she would call us to prayer, it'd be like Jerry, Mary Ellen, Bill, Jim, Joe, Chris, Ginger, Tom.
That's like the Walton family kind of thing, like the Partridge family.
Somewhere in there, I don't know, somewhere in the crowd, and I think that made me. There might have been an element of being starved for attention.
Oh, I'm sure. It's very, very competitive.
I also was. I had seen The Sound of Music when I was 7, and I was like, oh my God, these 7 kids, and they're in this mansion in Austria and running around the countryside singing and dancing, and my life, my dad had 2 jobs, my mom was a nurse, and it still wasn't enough money. We were very much lower middle class, always struggling for money. It's always like, is there going to be enough food? And I just had, between just the Sound of Music, and then just every movie I saw just like get my adrenaline pumping, and it's like where I gotta get where I gotta get.
The Von Trapps are.
I remember I asked my mom. I said, "Can you take me where those kids got in that movie?" This is when I was 7 years old, and she was like, "Maybe when you're 8."
Were you always interested in pursuing acting, even at that young age?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And the last job I did before I left LA to be a university professor was on the Fox lot, and I had actually never worked on the Fox lot before. And I'm walking past this soundstage with this, 3-story high mural of Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music, and I suddenly thought, I did it.
So it all comes back to The Sound of Music,
where those kids made that movie, and it's like I'm standing here. I actually finally got here, and it was like a nice sort of completion and good place to move on to the next thing.
You had your full circle moment.
Yeah, that's great. But, one of our classic opening questions that we're going to ask you, we ask every guest, is growing up, were you a fan of horror films? And if so, were there any that made a big impact on you at a young age?
I would say being very religious, it was rough to get into horror movies, but you guys may or may not have heard of this movie. It was called The H-Man. It was a Japanese horror movie where this man could change from he would change from being, it was black and white. He could change from being human to being this green slime. So you had people, they would slam the door and lock the door, and then this green slime thing could come under the door. And if it got you, it dissolved you. So you would, the only thing they would find of you is just your clothes, your wet, slimy clothes on the floor. And of course, being a kid, it was like the only thing I knew to do would be to get in some room and lock the door. And it's like, no, that won't help.
That's such a unique answer. I've never heard of that movie. Have you, Tim?
No, but I mean, it sounds like The Blob a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't the Blob. It isn't the Blob. I did look it up. It's like I said, it's a little obscure, but it's called The H-Man. Was in Japanese with Japanese subtitles, but it was like one of those dialing for dollars afternoon, a movie they would show like when the kids had gotten home from school.
So I take it your mom was probably not a big fan of like The Exorcist.
But when I saw The Exorcist, though, that was a huge. I teach screenwriting at Arizona State, and one of the things I love about The Exorcist, and one of the things I love about Carrie as well, is they both have a lot of violence, a lot of blood, a lot of but the deeper communication of the best horror films. Because you have so much adrenaline pumping, because you're so tied to the screen, I feel like it's an extraordinarily powerful way to get an artistic communication out into the world. And I love The Exorcist so much, like that moment at the end where it's like we've been praying for days, weeks, God is not coming. So he's on top of that girl, strangling her. It's like God is not going to do this. Like Jesus is not coming. I have to be Jesus. And when he says, take me, and then the demon does, and it's like not only is he, and then before the demon can make him do anything bad, he throws himself out the window, and it's like not only is he losing his mortal life, he's committed suicide, and he's going to lose, according to Catholic doctrine, he's going to lose his eternal life as well. So doing the right thing that God won't do, and he's going to lose his mortal life and his eternal life. And then he's at the bottom of the stairs, bleeding to death, and getting the last rites, and this priest is saying, are you sorry for everything you've done? And it's like, God should be apologizing to you.
But it's
apologizing to God.
It's all okay because he comes back in The Exorcist Part 3, although possessed. Remember, Tim? And it's so funny. But no, everything you say is correct. And it is a lot of people that we ask that question to, The Exorcist is the movie that made such an impact on them, whether they came from a religious family or just grew up in that time. So it's a common movie we get, but we love hearing about movies that made impacts on their lives, because it's like, Tim and I, we each have the movies that registered with us as kids and made us have such a love for this genre that, we're dedicating an entire podcast to it. So it's always something that registers with you, and it's usually at a young age, which is why we ask.
Well, so with Carrie, if I can tell you, so again, having a very religious mother. So my mother was out of town, and I had my friend Linda called me and said, you want to go see Carrie? So I was 17. I could get into an R-rated movie. So being religious, I'm like, Linda has pulled up in her car. I'm getting in, and my mother, she is Margaret White in Carrie.
Wow.
She pulls up and I say, hello to her, she's back from her trip. She goes, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the movies. And she goes, what movie? I said, well, we're going to go see Carrie. And she goes, Christopher, isn't that movie rated R? And I said, yes, Mom. Well, I guess you better go. Your friend is waiting.
Oh, wait. You said how old were you at the time?
17.
Oh, well, that's the legal age to see R-rated movies. So what's the point?
But you don't go see an R-rated movie.
His mom is strict.
I love that. Well, how old are you? 17. The age that it says is appropriate for R-rated movies.
Not according to my mother.
Wow, that's amazing. And Margaret White in that movie is terrifying. So I don't want to guess what your mom was like. I hope.
Well, it was a particularly horrifying movie for me. hyper controlling religious mother. I'm just like watching the screen, like, oh my God.
Did you have telekinetic powers?
I wish. Although I wouldn't have killed all those people. I would have been nice about it.
You know, easy for you to say, Carrie had it rough. She had it rough. Anyway, so moving into your horror resume, and we're going to kind of go in chronological order, starting with 1984's The Initiation, which just happens to be a slasher film that Tim and I honestly love. We love the twist ending. Now, you play Chad, a guy who enjoys scaring the sorority pledges before ultimately becoming one of the killer's victims. So we just wanted to know, like, how did you get involved with The Initiation, and what was the audition process like for your role?
Well, it was probably one of the single most exciting things that ever happened to me at that time. So I had just finished my theater degree at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. So at that time, they were making a lot of movies in Texas. I believe Texas had some sort of tax deal that was attracting them. So they would cast the major roles out of New York and LA. Then they'd come and cast the smaller roles in Fort Worth. So I had done like 4 lines in a TV movie before this License to Kill, not the James Bond movie. It was about a drunk driver who kills a girl, but just a very small part. But this was like many scenes, and so the character was described as a big dumb surfer boy, and so I'm sitting there so the audition is held at a Holiday Inn in Fort Worth. You're not even inside, like there's just like folding chairs set up outside this motel. And next to me is this 6'4" blonde, big dumb surfer boy. I'm not getting this part. And so we both read. So the director was a very artsy director. I think his name was Peter Crane. And if you look at like the beginning of the movie with the insane asylum and these crazy shots and wide weird angles and all that stuff, so that's him. So anyway, I went in and read, and I thought I did a good job with it, but I was not hopeful. And then when I went back for the callback, the big dumb surfer guy didn't show up. And I asked, like, does anybody know him? And they said, oh, yeah, there's a Rolling Stones concert in Las Vegas. He went to that. And I was like, I'm the only one here for this part. And when I went in the room, the director said that. He said, well, you're the only one who showed up, so I guess it's you.
That's awesome.
And my heart almost stopped. Like, this is a real part in a movie, and Vera Miles is going to be in it, like this woman from Psycho. And I drove home, like I could have crashed in my car. I was so excited. And I told my boyfriend at the time, like my friends were all so excited for me. And
did you tell your mom?
Actually, my mom had died right after I finished high school.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
A couple of years later. So, and that's an interesting question. I wonder what she would have said.
I'm sure she would have been very proud. I mean, and also The Initiation, not quite The Exorcist or Carrie, so a little bit. So I not infringing too much on the religious stuff.
Yeah, I don't think there's any religion in the movie.
just a lot of big dumb surfer guys.
Did you? But I just considered that to be like an amazing piece of luck, and I knew Vera Miles was going to be in it, and I remember wanting to. So we were shooting. Most of my scenes are in this. It wasn't technically a shopping mall. It was like a wholesale shopping mall, that building that we were shooting in. So it was
I read it was the Dallas Market Center, and you guys could only film between like 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. What was it like filming in like such a completely vacant mall? Because I would think that looks so creepy, a huge mall that's completely empty.
I think it was a very effective location, but when you're on a movie set, there's just so many people. Like it was there wasn't a lot of time to be, or there wasn't a lot of space to be creeped out because there were just so many, there was so much noise and so many people around. Of course, the cameras are rolling. It's like.
And Vera Miles at that time was fresh off Psycho 2 because that came out in 1983.
Yeah, you don't share scenes with her directly, but did you get to meet her while filming?
I didn't. The only so this is actually an interesting thing with her. So she after Psycho 2, she was retired. And she was like, I'm not doing anything else. And Peter Crane went to her and described what he wanted to do. Like, this is not going to be like a typical slasher movie. We're really going to create a piece of art here. And he talked her into it. And he fell behind on shooting. He was way behind on schedule, and they fired him.
Oh.
So before she even got there, they fired him. So she had already signed her contract. So she was pretty mad. These are stories I heard on the set, but that she was pretty pissed because he was the only reason that she decided to do it. The only thing I saw of her though, so we're shooting all night, and I remember I was just in a corner, on my back, having fallen asleep, and I heard someone going by me. I looked up, I see her calf and her pastel blue high heel shoe go by into this room, and the door slams. So that is all I actually got to see of Vera Miles on the set.
Wow, but you do, the Initiation was the first leading role for Daphne Zuniga, who, most people are going to remember from as Jo on Melrose Place or Princess Vespa in Spaceballs. But what was Daphne like to work with at that time, being so early in her career? I mean, I guess it was very early for both of you, so.
Was she sweet?
Oh, I'm getting, hey, you can be honest. I don't think she's a listener.
Let's say, she didn't seem happy to be there. I was having the time of my life. I was having so much fun. I was like, I dreamed my whole life of being in a movie, and here I'm in a movie, and I was really having a good time. But she didn't seem like she was having fun. Let's
wow.
put it that way.
I would think, I don't know, it's so surprising only because I would think like when you're just starting your career, you get the lead in a horror movie. I would think look at what the lead role in horror movies have done for people like Jamie Lee Curtis or I don't know. That's so.
Yeah. And you're in an empty mall. You're hanging out with your friends.
I know. And it's like, that's unfortunate to hear because you would think, and it seems like it was such a fun shoot between the mall time and a big young cast,
Like I said, I had a wonderful time. Marilyn Kagan was particularly sweet. I remember, I don't know how much older than me she actually was, but she felt, I know she felt like, she said at one point, like, she said, seriously, I'm supposed to be in high school. So I don't know how old she actually was. She was older than us, but she was really nice to me. Yeah, I guess the local cast, we hung out together and had fun together. The LA cast was like I said, Vera Miles. Vera Miles, I think, felt like it had been a little bait and switch for her. And Daphne and James Reed hung out together, but.
Hunter Tylo of the Bold and the Beautiful fame, which I'm a total soap fan. I love Hunter Tylo. She went by the name Deborah Moorhart at the time. What was she like? Was she fun?
She was a doll. And it was weird to me to see, when she got that part, because she was so because she was just like a goof and having fun and laughing and running around this mall like the rest of us. And then she does this, just becomes this, she was blonde at the time. So she's this dark hair and, steamy beauty on this soap opera. So that transformation was very unexpected for me, but she is a very nice person. And I don't remember what happened with one of her kids, but she had some heartbreak later. And I just remember thinking, on one hand, it's terrible that should happen to her, but it's like, if I was a kid having those problems, I would want her as my mom.
That's nice.
I knew that she would be like, that she was fundamentally like a good person.
So, your big scene, after using a urinal in the bathroom, you end up being found dead in a stall with your throat slit. Now, we read that there were some complications with the plastic appliance that was supposed to attach to your throat. Can you tell us about that and all the makeup that went into that death scene?
Well, there were two things about, so the director, Peter Crane, I think would have quite liked me, and we would have had a good time together. But Larry Stewart was brought in because they were behind schedule, and it's like, get this thing in the can and get us out of here. So it was like boom, 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 like shoot as fast as you can. And if you watch the scene where I'm at the urinal taking a piss, as I said, we were just having fun. So Devo's Whip It was a popular song at the time. So I started whistling the opening to, while I'm pissing. So I started whistling the opening to Whip It, like I'm holding my thing. And, and he, after the cut, he goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I was like, he said, "Just do it. Just take a piss and get off screen." But it made it into the movie. So apparently the editor thought it was funny.
And what happened with the makeup? The throat slit makeup.
As I said, like Larry Stewart, God bless him, he was under an extraordinary amount of stress. So we needed to be out of the mall by 7 a.m, and it was about 6:30, I think, at the time. And so everybody was running and getting stuff done as fast as they could. And so it was a rubber appliance that was made to look like a slit on the side of my throat. And so he was, I think he'd been working on something before that. So his hands had gotten the stage blood on them. So he's trying to glue this thing on my neck, and it won't stick because it got wet. So he's trying to dry it, and we gotta go. And so Larry Stewart, again, I forgive him for this, but he came over and got in my face, and it's like, "What is taking you so long?"
Maybe that's why Daphne was so unhappy.
Well, I mean, I guess when you change a director, anything's possible. Like,
well, I said, it was, I'm sure he was just, and we needed to be out. We couldn't have we couldn't have another shooting day in this place. We had to be out of there. Like, people were going to start showing up for work. And, but his first AD grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him away. And said to him, either you go back and apologize to that actor, or I quit.
Wow!
Really? Good for him. That's some integrity,
So he came back over and he's like, "Yeah, I'm."
And what did you think of the twist ending with Daphne being a twin and Vera Miles shooting the murderous one?
Well, interestingly, I thought the whole script was really fun, and I felt like it was exactly what a slasher movie should be. One of the things in my screenwriting class, I talked to the kids about genre. So it's like, you want to have the genre tropes, and you also want to use the tropes and surprise at the same time. And I felt like the screenplay did that.
Yeah. And you got to say the iconic line, "I'll be right back." And then Marcia had that really awkward story right in the middle, like you're like so out of place.
Yeah, it's like the script takes some twists and turns. There is that big story that Marcia talks about being sexually assaulted right as you guys are like partying and making jokes, and it totally makes everything very somber and serious. And
yes.
What were your thoughts on that being part of the script?
Again, I thought it was surprising. I thought it humanized the. I thought it gave the characters some depth. I thought that the way that the characters' reactions were written was very consistent with being we had just finished high school. We're in our first year of college. I liked it. Again, I thought it was a good way to, as a group, to deepen those characters.
I agree. And so out of left field, and Charles Pratt Jr., who wrote Melrose Place and General Hospital, so it kind of fits in that he'd put something even more dramatic into a slasher film.
Was there any type of premiere for it, or do you remember the first time you saw it with an audience?
I have never seen it with an audience.
Oh.
If they did it, so you have to. This is by the time it came out, I believe it was 1985. So at that time, I was living in LA by that point. I had moved from when I finished school. I moved to New York first, and I lived there for about a year and a half, and then I moved to LA. So I remember the first time I saw it, one of my I couldn't even afford cable. I was like, so I couldn't afford cable, and I could barely afford to rent videos in a video store. That's how poor I was. And I remember I was waiting tables, and one of my fellow waiters had recorded it from TV or from cable, and gave me the video cassette. So that was the first time I saw it.
Wow, it sounds like wait, actually this year is the 40th anniversary. Maybe we can do an anniversary screening or something, get you and Hunter and Daphne. I mean, that's so funny.
You should definitely see it with an audience.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
You guys. If I could see it on a big screen with an audience, and just like I have there's just so many it was such a, like I said, it was such a big moment in my life. If you picture that 7-year-old boy, like, I want to get in the movies, and then I'm on a set, I'm on a set with real actors, and I would feel like, oh my God, I'm 22 again, and I'm sure Hunter Tyler has no idea who I am. I'm sure you.
A lot of these people remember movies from a long, long time ago, even if it was just like a blip in their career. So you never know. But who knows? Maybe there can be an anniversary screening that you could attend, because that's unfortunate that you never got to see it with an audience.
Yeah, because it did play in the movie theater.
Yes, it did. I think its main fame became it was right when video stores were exploding. And so I think it was a big movie for, high schoolers to rent, so you rent it on a Saturday night and have a slumber party, and or watch it on cable. It was a happy memory, actually, for a lot of people. It was.
I love it. And I find it very quotable. Like, a fair child always needs a tan. Like, there has so many quotable lines. I think it's really fun.
Well, the one my friends and I quote is, Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
It's just like looking in a mirror. Kelly.
So, continuing in the Christopher Bradley tradition of getting murdered on screen, in 1986's sci-fi thriller The Wraith, you break another big horror rule because you have sex, and of course you have to be killed because you get beaten up and stabbed in a flashback. What was it like filming that kind of brutal death scene for the movie?
Yeah, did they accidentally slip and punch in the face?
Yeah, that was a weird experience. I had read for there's something called I think it's called a spare tire audition. So I believe Charlie Sheen already had that role, but they were auditioning other people. Like, if something happens, if he gets a better offer, if we can't get him, if the deal falls through, we have to have somebody waiting, in the wings that can jump in at the last minute. So I had read for Charlie Sheen's part, but I was again, a young actor, really eager to work and very, very, very broke. So I was really happy to
That's called when you're like on hold, like you're on a veil. Like, is that right?
They hadn't put me on a veil, but but I think that, yeah, if something had happened, they would have asked me, and I certainly would have said yes.
Did you get to meet Charlie?
I did not.
Oh. Or Sherilyn or Randy Quaid?
No, I just Griffin Dunn. I can't remember. Amy Bosian, I think, was in the scene.
I think Nick Cassavetes.
Nick Cassavetes. Yeah. Okay, so Nick Cassavetes actually. You just said, even if you were just a blip, would they remember you years later? I ran into Nick Cassavetes. 5 years later. So I'd been on the set for like one day, and he knew who I was and knew my name, and I was just like, no wonder everyone likes you, No wonder everyone.
Well, he did stab you.
I mean, it was a memorable scene. I'm sure he remembered having to murder you.
But what happened in that scene, though, was so we're in an actual shack. I don't know what this thing was, with this bed that it looked like a bed that would be in a shack, but it had a very, very thin mattress. So what I needed to do, I needed to be stabbed, I'm dead. So I can't even put my arms out to stop myself. I am just arms at my side, dead, and I need to fall forward. And the mattress was, and there were boards underneath it. And I came down and wham! I smacked my forehead on what was basically, it's like if you had a T-shirt between your head and a board. And I saw stars. It was. I don't remember. I don't know if we did another take. I think that might have been a one take thing. But that had the set had a very dark energy. And when I saw the movie, I was like, I felt like whatever that dark feeling on the set was had definitely come through.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we read about something really shocking and sad that occurred during production, that while filming one of the car chase scenes, an accident occurred that killed the assistant cameraman, Bruce Ingram, and injured 7 people. Were you around at all during this time?
No, that must have been before I got there.
Wow.
Sorry, it must have been after I got there.
Yeah, because I can't even imagine how that would affect the production.
Wow. Yeah.
It's an interesting film because it's about bullying and it's about sci-fi, and then Charlie Sheen may or may not be an alien.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen is he's supposed to be you, but as a different organism. It's a little bizarre, but it was a very interesting film.
And moving on to 1988's Waxwork, you play Stefan, a vampire that's on the hunt for Michelle Johnson's character, China. And fun fact, Michelle Johnson is in Dr. Giggles.
Okay.
How did you get involved with that film?
That was another one where as an actor, there's nothing better than just, the worst part is you audition, and they're all, the people audition you are always stone-faced. They don't want to give anything away because they're going to be negotiating with your agent, and they don't want to tell you how much they like you if they do. So auditioning, and then you have to wait the week, or or do a callback, do another callback. So this was Evan. I went in, I read one time for the director, and when I finished, he said, "You want to do it?"
Wow.
I was like, "Yeah, I do want to do it." I loved the part. I loved the tone of that film, the horror comedy. The horror comedy mix. In fact, I don't even know. I guess some of the stuff that Anthony Hitchcock's dad had done had something of a mix of horror and comedy. But I think this was much more explicitly comedic.
So you, in your scene, and just for listeners, if you don't know Waxwork, it's they, individually the characters get stuck in these alternate dimensions or scenes that are in the Waxwork that come alive, and usually they get killed. But Christopher in his scene is a vampire, and it's with Michelle Johnson, and you guys have a pretty bloody fight scene that ends with her making a cross out of 2 knives, putting them up to your face, and then your head starts bubbling and explodes. So I have to ask, how was that effect done, and what was it like filming that big death scene?
Well, again, I'm like, I have to tell you, like, a lot of times, even when I'd been doing it for like 20 years, I would be on a set and people would be like, first movie? You'd be like, no, it's just really like it. Like I just never got tired of it. And I loved, this is in the days before digital, so I loved practical effects. And so I would when I wasn't, shooting something, I'd go into the shop and like watch, what are you doing? What are you building? I was so happy with that effect. So I'm wearing a wig, and what they did was they had a tube, a plastic tube, flexible plastic tube that branched off into several bits. And so that's underneath the wig. And then somebody's off camera with a cigarette. So they're blowing. So she's burning the crucifix. Oh, also I have a balloon, a rubber balloon glued to my forehead that has the
cross on it.
It was actually very similar to the rubber thing that they had for my neck in the initiation. So it already has the thing pre-burned into it. So one person is blowing into the thing to make smoke come out of my hair, and then somebody else is blowing to make the balloon on my forehead go up and down. So, and then I have a cigarette as well. And so what we did is when they said action, they start blowing the smoke through my hair. The guy's blowing the balloon up and down. I take a mouthful of cigarette smoke, and then I'm supposed to be screaming, but of course and they dubbed in a scream. But I had to silent scream, and just the smoke is like drifting up out of my mouth, drifting up out of my hair. My forehead is vibrating. And then the actual explosion, that was a full-size human model with the head pops open. There was somebody off camera, so they had a fishing line that was holding the whole head together, and it was spring-loaded. So the person pulls the fishing line out, and then everything just kind of like blops open. And so they did that in fast motion. And then they had a bowl of oatmeal with stage blood in it, like Caro syrup with red food coloring in it, and just heaved it against the white walls. Heaved it on the guy on the table. They're just and you're both smiling so much. It's like I can't. Even now, I'm like, I am 7 years old. We're throwing bloody brains on the walls. Like I am having the time of my life here.
We loved it. How long does it take to reset something like that?
I'm guessing it's just one take, right?
I think they were able to do the head thing twice.
Oh wow!
But I remember, multiple takes of my, nothing was breaking for me. They could just do my stuff over again.
And do you prefer playing campier characters like in this film, or more straightforward roles?
Well, that's a hard question because most of what I did was drama. There's a TV movie called An Early Frost about I couldn't believe that it actually got on the air at that time, but it's about the AIDS crisis.
Yeah, with Aidan Quinn, right?
Yes. So I'm in a group therapy session in that film, and it's very intense. And I had actually just gotten back from I'd been living in Fort Worth and in Dallas, and a friend of mine had been diagnosed with AIDS. I flew out to see him. By the time I got there, he was already on a ventilator, and he'd only been diagnosed, I think, 8 days earlier, and he died.
Oh
and
God.
I came back from that trip just sort of shell-shocked, and that script was leaning against my door. And when I auditioned for it, I remember asking the casting director, is it possible that I'm going to get cast in this? And she said, I was reading for Aidan Quinn's Boyfriend, and she said, yeah, you're really too young for this part. And I said, well, I'm not going to leave this room until you tell me I can be an extra. Or I'll be a blur in the background, but I have to be in this somewhere. And I told her what had just happened. And she said, well, they're actually right in the other room writing this group therapy session. There might be something right for you in that. And I made her promise she would call me back. So anyway, long answer to your question. I usually played dramatic roles. So the times when I got to be funny, like Billy's Hollywood's Green Kiss and this, one thing about being funny too is you have to take it seriously. I knew that this scene was preposterous. Like the women with the champagne bottles, the women vampires with the champagne bottles popping through their bodies. Like I knew it was preposterous, but I played it like this is Shakespeare. Like,
and that's Waxwork really works because the tone is like everyone's super cool. Like Dana Ashbrook and Deborah Foreman, like they're and like even Zach Galligan. Like everyone's dressed like I don't know, the pages of Vogue, and then they're in this Waxwork, so it's like it really has an element of cool.
But they really do take it seriously. It is funny, like you said. All of the characters, it's like they're never kind of laughing at what's going on.
There's no wink at the audience.
Yeah. Even though, they're also getting killed.
And if I can, while I'm thinking about her, Deborah Foreman is another one that I ran into randomly years later, and she remembered me, and we had a nice conversation. She was. Oh my God, she is a doll.
We've had her on the show and she was great. We talked I'll send you the link to her episode. We talked a ton about April Fool's Day, but we also talked about Waxwork and everything. So yeah, she was great. And she so embraces that kind of the horror background and goes to conventions and things. So I can only imagine how nice she is.
And you got to work with her twice.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of the next one, Sundown, the Vampire Retreat, another vampire movie.
Can I tell one more story about Waxwork?
Oh, sure.
Just so when we did the scene in the castle, so just to describe for your listeners, so there's this scene. It's got this long, it's a castle dining room, and it's got this long, heavy wooden table, and we're all sitting in this very dank looking castle. Well, it's really a warehouse in Valencia, California, up near Disneyland. So they had done the whole set about like 7 feet high. They had built the set. So this old guy, he must have been like from the 30s and 40s. He's very old, and he brings in this it was like a 5 foot by 8 foot piece of glass, and he sets it up, and then he looks at the room and starts painting, and he painted the rest of the set, so it looks like it's 30 feet high. It's only like 7 feet high, and I've looked at the movie and I can't see where the fake ends and the real begins. Another really smart thing that they did was there's a window up high up on this wall of the castle, and it's got an upside down star in it, this upside down star window. So that was left unpainted, so then they could blow smoke. So they have a light on the other side shining through into the room supposedly, but the glass thing is actually 10 feet away from the actual room. So they have a light shining through, and then they're blowing smoke across it. So it really sells that this is real. So again, I'm just, I'm over his shoulder, like watching what he's doing. And he's been doing this for at least 40 years. And he's like bored, just doing his job. And after we finished the scene, I remember he took out a dirty rag, poured some kind of chemical on it, and just starts like erasing it. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're erasing the Mona Lisa here. Even now, tell me somebody would not have paid a fortune to have some horror fan wouldn't have paid a fortune to have that painting. That
Absolutely.
Of course. I think people, especially in the 80s, I mean, as we talked to so many actors who were in horror movies in the 80s, didn't know at the time the lasting effect that a lot of these movies would have. And it's really unfortunate because, like you said, a lot of props, a lot of things that back then you just thought, oh, we need it for now, and then we don't need it again. Like, people like us would go crazy over.
Because when you watch a film at ages 11, 12, 13, 14, obviously Matt and I are still talking about it on today.
Yeah.
Like, when I got the call to do the Blu-ray extras for The Initiation, I was like, when I did that movie, it was like I said, I had a great time, but it was like I did not imagine 40 years later that anybody would be still interested in that movie or talking about that movie.
We have the DVD,
cool.
But we don't have the Blu-ray, so I haven't seen those extras. Now I got to get the Blu-ray of it. But I love when Blu-rays come out for older movies because a lot of times, like you said, they will seek out cast members, filmmakers, and people that maybe haven't talked about it in decades.
Yeah, and now with streaming and everything, The Initiation, you can see it and watch it with your friends. I mean, Matt and I've watched The Initiation on Tubi like 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's streaming in a ton of places. So is Waxwork and
Sundown. If I could just say one more thing while I'm thinking about it, I hope I'm not driving you crazy. Am I using too much time here?
No.
But Charles Pratt Jr. So I assumed he was like a screenwriter. He's like in his middle-aged screenwriter, and he was our age. Like I believe he had just finished at UCLA when he got that job. And so watching the Blu-ray extras on The Initiation, it was like hearing his experience. It's like, oh my God, you were like us. You were wide-eyed and oh my God, like having fun making a movie, writing a movie, and you're a screenwriter just kind of out of nowhere. And he had that same kind of excitement that the rest of us had, and I love hearing his interview.
So next up, the Sundown, The Vampire in Retreat, which was also directed by your Waxwork director, Anthony Hickox. You play Chaz, a punk from L.A. who gets turned into a vampire and joins the group that attacks like the big town of Purgatory. Now, since you had already worked with Anthony, the director, did he just kind of ask you to play this role, or did you have to audition?
I did not have to audition, happily. I was living in West Hollywood, and I was picking up shirts at the dry cleaner, and he was in line in front of me, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and he was very happy to see me, and we had a nice conversation. And I said, I'm really looking to work. Do you got anything? And he was like, oh, actually I do. And so he gave me the part on the spot. So
being at the right place at the right time.
And I love that, because why not take a risk and add, because you had developed a connection and he had already seen you play a vampire, so why not?
And I took that part really seriously too. I actually hired a dialogue an accent coach to work on that surfer boy accent that I did in Sundown. So
And you got to work with Deborah again, and there was Bruce Campbell and Dana Ashbrook. And my personal favorite is Maxwell Caulfield from Grease 2. Do you have any stories about Maxwell?
Maxwell, probably of the actors that I feel like never got their due, he would be high on my list. Because first of all, really nice, and he was another one who I saw him. He's the real deal as an actor. He should have. I feel like he should have had a much bigger career than he did. I saw him do a play in LA where he was the abused part. He was a Vietnam veteran and the abused partner in a gay relationship, a physically abused partner in a gay relationship, and it was really deep work, and he was amazing in that. And I don't think he ever really got to do that kind of anything of that depth in movies or TV. And everything he did do, I feel like, you're really great. You should be doing bigger things. And he again, like remembered me, remembered my name. And these people are like, they meet 1,000 people. Like, I think that's part of, that may be part of why there's these various actors that I've mentioned are part of why they're successful, because I think they're not the stereotypical narcissistic actor. They're actually looking around themselves. They are actually listening to people, and they actually engaging with people. And anyway, I love him. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, he's heaven.
Yeah, we would love to. We do have to talk about those tight leopard pants that your character wears in Sundown. Now, was that your wardrobe choice or the costume designers? And the most important question of all is, do you still have those leopard pants today?
I did not choose the outfit, but I think I filled out those leopard print tights pretty well.
Very well. But do you still have them today?
I do not. I did not get to keep the leopard print tights.
And what was it like filming all of the big battle scenes? Because in Sundown, there's this huge battle with horses, a limo, gunfire, all this stuff.
Okay, I don't want to throw shade on anyone because I'm not sure who was responsible for this, but so there's a scene where I'm on a horse and I've got a rifle. And so I'm on a horse in my left tights and Bride of Frankenstein hair. And so I have a rifle, and so I'm sitting on this horse, and I have nothing to hold on to because I have to fire this rifle. So this horse seems very nervous, and it's moving around a lot. And I've ridden horses before, but I'm not a rodeo guy, and it's moving a lot. So I asked the wrangler. I said, "You sure this is okay?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's fine." So I fire the rifle. The horse is not fine. It leaps up. And again, I'm only holding on to the gun. So the gun comes up, smashes me in the face, it splits my lip. I didn't fall off. Thank goodness, because the horse then was like jumping all over the place and could stop me. But pretty scary. And so God bless Morgan Brittany in this case. I didn't feel like I was not a big enough actor with enough cachet to say anything, but she called SAG. And so a representative from the Screen Actors Guild came to the set the next day to look at the potential safety issues and kind of put them on notice. Like, you can't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Morgan Brittany.
In fact, I don't think I knew at the time why SAG showed up, but Morgan Brittany, if you're listening, thank you.
So we've talked about a bunch of your horror movies, but one thing I did want to mention that we had kind of talked about before we recorded was, you are an out gay man just like us, and being in the industry in the 80s when it may not have been as acceptable to be an out gay actor. Just wanted to ask you about what it was like kind of navigating the industry at that time and how that affected your career, or when you felt like you could be honest about your sexuality.
Right. Because like me, I walk into a room, everyone knows I'm gay. For you, I'm sure I don't think people would think that.
Well, so it was a series of things. So as I told you, I had just gotten to LA when my friend died, and I had a lot of friends who were sick. So right after I did An Early Frost, that was the TV movie about AIDS. I was cast in the LA production of The Normal Heart, and with Richard Dreyfuss and Kathy Bates and Bruce Davison was in it, and it was Ben Murphy's boyfriend. So my friend had just died, and I had a lot of friends who were sick, and so my character is at the opening scene of the play. I'm waiting to see if I have AIDS, and I go into the doctor's office, find out I do, and I come out and I'm weeping, hugging my boyfriend. He takes me outside, and then moments later comes in with me in his arms, and I'm in the middle of a seizure. So it was a very intense scene. And while we were in production, the test for HIV became available. So my first boyfriend had AIDS, and his partner before me was the one who died. So I was terrified, and I tested negative, and almost fainted when they said negative. I was like, "Oh wait, no, negative is the good one. That's the good one." But I felt like I could not be closeted. If you've seen the play The Normal Heart, one of the things that it criticizes is that somebody who worked at the National Institutes of Health recognized that it was gay men who were getting this, but he didn't want to point that out because people would know he was gay. And I was like, I can't. My friends are dying. I can't be in the closet. And so one night we would have a question and answer session after the show, and somebody asked a question of the cast and said, "How do you feel about actors who won't come out?" And I put my hand up, and I said, "People get into acting, get into acting because they want to make a difference in your life. It's why people become doctors, why people take on all kinds of jobs, because they want to do something good. They want to change the world. And if they tell you they're gay, you're not going to let them. You're not going to let them do their job. You're not going to let them make a difference in the world." So there's a huge impetus to lie. And I said, "But I'm not doing that, and I'll tell you. So I'm an actor, and I'm gay." It did. I think being out did affect things, but it should not be something that people need to know. But at that moment, I felt like it was necessary. It was almost like I needed to throw that in people's faces. I needed them to know, like, you are surrounded by gay people.
And what year was this that you that you came out publicly during
that would have probably been about 1986.
Oh wow!
I think that's fantastic because growing up, I don't think I knew one gay person in my real life or on television or movies or nothing. So I really applaud your representation matters. Like it does.
It's also admirable because a lot of people waited a lot longer. And again, everyone's on their own path and their own journey, and nobody should be forced to come out. But it is nice because when people like you would say it in a public setting back then, it makes it easier for people like us to say it in a public setting later.
I really hope that's true.
It is, and we thank you for.
Thank you.
We thank you for making it easier for us, and really, it's very admirable and very commendable. So, I think that's great.
If I can say something else about that, I auditioned for a movie called 52 Pickup, and the character was described as a very effeminate gay man. So I had my hair, sort of. I didn't have long hair, but I did the closest I could do to an 80s women's hairdo at the time, and I had like green eyeshadow on, and it was playing it very, very effeminate, which is what the role called for. And I remember the director said to me, "Can you make it more gay?" And I said, I paused and I said, I'm already like being more effeminate than any gay person, would ever be. And he said, "How do you know what a gay person would ever be? Are you gay?" And I told him yes. And He got mad. And
he got mad that you were gay, or that you were, basically telling him that he's...
I was basically telling him, like, this is
ridiculous.
This is such a gross stereotype of gay people. And I'm already so out on the skinny branches. I'm not going further than this.
I mean, hopefully things are changing. I mean, what little auditioning I have done, there is a gay stereotype, that gay role that everyone like,
And it's not, I mean, the good news is that at least, I don't know, in the last decade or so, not every gay character you see on screen has to be effeminate or has to be a certain way. There can be a diverse amount of different gay characters, just like there can be a diverse amount of different straight characters. There's different types of everyone. And so
when I finished grad school, I decided I was going to, so this was in 2003, I decided I was going to go back and do some acting again. And some casting directors that had liked me in the 80s hooked me up with a manager, and I was having a meeting with her, and I told her, before we sign anything, I want you to know, so my manager in the 80s had told me, do not let anybody know you're gay. It will ruin your career. And when I did Leather Jacket Love Story, I was told by my agent, if you do this was a gay themed independent film where I actually did full frontal. So he said, this will ruin your career. And I was like, I haven't worked in 3 years. How will I know when my career is ruined? Like, oh, you haven't been working, but you are so not working now. So that would have been in like 1996 when I shot Leather Jacket Love Story, and Billy's Hollywood Screen, because I already knew the director, and he just hired me to do that part. But I told the manager, I don't lie about being gay, so if that's going to be a problem for you, we shouldn't work together. And she looked at me and she was like, Christopher, no one gives a shit about that anymore. And I was like this huge weight lifted off me, and I because I'd been gone for, I'd been in grad school for 5 years, and I started auditioning, and casting directors who were gay, who knew I was gay, it was an absolute non-issue. And I played before I left to come to Arizona to be a screenwriting professor. I played two really good heterosexual characters, and it really was. It had like, and you had talked about like, thank you for saying that during The Normal Heart, but at that point, Ellen DeGeneres had come out, and Chad Allen had come out, and a number of other gay actors had spoken about it openly, and that made room for me. If I can say something about, I remember when I was in the 80s, somebody saying, like, why can't drag queens just act normal? And this was a conversation I was overhearing as a young gay man. And the other person said, they are expanding the envelope for you. Like, the more outrageous they are, then they've spread the line out, and now you're normal. Like in 1955, it wouldn't matter how normal you acted. You were going to prison, Yeah. You were going to be arrested and go to prison. Anyway, I'm immensely grateful for the famous people who had that courage and made it a non-issue, because I really don't feel like I need to, I would not need to discuss it anymore, because who cares?
It's so interesting. 2003, I mean, I know that's 21 years ago. Is that right? Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm so happy that things have improved so much in that aspect.
We did want to, before we wrapped up with you, Christopher, we wanted to ask you about what you've been up to today, because I know you are a teacher. I know you transitioned into writing a director and worked on a feature film called The Trigger. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to recently?
Yes. So every once in a while, there'll be a movie made in Arizona. I did a small part in a movie called Suspicion. And the writer director of that he's in LA, David Dilley, and he is doing various producer hats, but this was a screenplay. The Trigger is a screenplay I wrote when I was in the MFA screenwriting program at UCLA. I did it very, very inexpensively. Anybody who's listening to this, there are some immensely talented people in Arizona, and we shot it on a shoestring budget. And it's a drama about I was inspired by. I have a nephew that had a lot of just legal problems, and had gone to prison a number of times, but anytime he got out of prison, the way the system is set up, it makes it impossible for you. How do you find a job? How do you find somewhere to live? Like the temptation to go back and do what you know, as far as what got you put in prison the first time is enormous. And I wanted to write a story about somebody in that situation. So I felt very, very passionate about that project. And my lead actor had a long career, starting as a child actor. He was in the Rene Russo version of Yours, Mine, and Ours when he was about 5 years old. So he was a seasoned actor by the time he did my film. But I did that. I also did I did a short film called The Violation with that actor also. But I met Beth Grant at a party in LA, and she and I got into like a 4-hour conversation. So Beth Grant was the beauty queen, or the running
I'm familiar with I know
contest in Donnie Darko, and she was in John Leguizamo, Patrick Swayze.
Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar.
So she was in Tu Wong Fu, and I loved her so much. And when I wrote the short, I had her in mind for the mom character. And so we'd had this was years earlier. We'd had this 4-hour conversation, and I tried to contact her on Facebook. I tried to, I found, any email address, any way of contacting her I could find. And I when I got a casting director, she told me, what you need to do is write a begging letter and just tell her, I can't do this without you. And I wrote this begging letter, and she said yes. And she said, I remember you from that afternoon. I remember that long conversation. And I always thought, whatever happened to that guy? Whatever became of him? And she was just the den mother, kindest hippie chick, peaceful, loving on everyone. Like, if you ever get a chance to have her on your show, like she is jaw-droppingly wonderful. And so the idea that I have, I dreamed of being a writer and a director, and the idea that even on the shoestring budgets that I've done these two projects on, I actually have a limited web series thing. It's just 6 episodes, like 6 10-minute episodes. I shot that, and it's currently in editing. But I feel so happy and grateful that I've gotten to live that dream. The quality of people that have said yes to me is, I can't even believe it. Like the idea that I can say I directed Beth Grant in something, just still, like I almost like, is this real? Did that really happen?
That's so cool. But it is great that you've been able to experience that and met so many people throughout your career that, like you said, you can run into and will remember you, and people that just in so many different moments throughout your life, like memories from acting, now from writing and directing, and and who knows what the future has in store. Do you think you would ever do another horror movie?
Oh my God. If I could, oh God, I would walk to LA from Phoenix to do another horror movie. It's my favorite genre. It's like the worst horror movie is still the most fun, the most delightful. I look back with such happiness at the initiation and Waxwork and Sundown. Like these are, again, like how did I get so lucky? Like that I got to do that as part of my life's work.
So we have one final question for you that we ask every guest on the show, and it's going to put you on the spot a little bit. We do this with everyone. What is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on any of the horror films we discussed today that you've never told any other interviewer, any other publication, podcaster, just something about your experience working on one of those horror films that you've never told before in an interview?
And it doesn't have to be scandalous or anything. It could just be like a funny story, like Deborah Moorhart fell down wearing skates.
Yeah, it can be funny. It can be little. It can be juicy. It can be gossipy. Whatever.
Or it could just be a fun little detail.
Yeah, I already have. I don't believe I've ever talked about that horseback riding thing before in Sundown.
That's a good one because
hit me in the face.
When SAG gets involved, you know you're in trouble.
And I don't blame Anthony Hickox. It's like you're working on a low budget. Somebody says they have a record of dealing with animals on a set, and
that was a good one.
I think that was new. Yeah, I don't think I ever told the story about the original director Peter Crane being fired, and the difference in the directing style between somebody who's really Peter Crane, I believe, really had a vision for that film, like a visual style that he wanted to do. And do you remember there being a big dichotomy?
I felt like the mental hospital stuff was done so much more artsy than the mall stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't believe I've ever talked about that before. I don't believe I ever talked about never having seen the movie.
That I think is the most shocking that you hadn't seen it. But again, maybe
I want you to see all of your films on the big screen.
Yes, well, maybe we can do a Christopher Bradley horror marathon.
I would.
Oh, look, this has been so much fun. Like, not only
you guys are great. What a wonderful. I love thinking back on this stuff, and I just want to say again, like Deborah Moorhart, or not Deborah, Deborah Foreman, Deborah Moorhart too. Deborah Foreman is such a doll. I believe actually, I think she's in Arizona too now. But anybody out there listening, like this is somebody again who's like, she is a joy to work with. The camera absolutely loves her. Like Maxwell Caulfield, I feel like she should have a bigger career. If somebody wants to bring her back, if somebody wants to do a Quentin Tarantino, Maxwell Caulfield, Quentin Tarantino him, Deborah Foreman, Quentin Tarantino her, they are amazing actors, and just good energy comes off them. So
we agree because we were lucky to chat with Deborah, but we also think you have a ton of great energy coming off of you. And we really have enjoyed speaking with you. You're just so humble and down to earth and sweet, and just we really appreciate it. Seriously, thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy you asked me to do this.
Our students are lucky to have you.
Yes. Well, again, thank you, Christopher. We will be in touch as to when the episode's going to be coming out, but we really appreciate you taking the time to open up with us, tell so many great stories. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Yes, have a great afternoon. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay,
bye
take
now.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.